Hey, you guys. So I wanted to come on here and give my commentary regarding social media's reaction to Tyler Perry regarding his numerous criticisms he's been receiving for his recycled storylines and repetitiveness of the struggling black woman stereotype. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into this one. So, black people, make sure to bring it in because we have a lot to discuss here. So, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and make this disclaimer because I know that there are going to be people who will try to come on here and say that I am attacking Perry or I'm being critical of him, which they would be right on the second part that I'm being critical because I feel as though constructive criticism is very helpful whenever it comes to improving the quality of any kind of content that a person creates. So they would be right in saying that. But in terms of me attacking him, I think that they might be getting it confused with me just not going along with everything and agreeing with everything that it is that he does and says as far as his actions that he incorporates into his movies. So one of the things I also want to say is that no one is above reproach. I think sometimes we kind of get caught up in the fact that we are so immaculate and so above what people typically would consider to be successful that they are untouchable, and that simply is not the case. I really don't think that we should be reinforcing this type of behavior because it will actually create problems for us later on, and I really don't want us to be the subject of ridicule and scrutiny whenever it comes to the dominant society trying to see how it is that we interact amongst each other, our behavior towards one another, and how all of that can ultimately be very detrimental to us in the long run. So, one of the things that I want to touch on that I've noticed in his films is the clear and blatant colorism in some of his films. Now, you will have to bear with me because I've not seen all of his films. Sometimes I might have just seen one or two, and I can barely remember some of the details. Some of them are vague, so I don't recall every single detail of each movie verbatim, but I can say that there are times where Tyler Perry has incorporated a little bit of colorism. So I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of the movie Tyler Perry's Diary of a Mad Black Woman and use that as an example. So when you hear me talk about this, I will be actually using certain distinctions, so you guys will probably be able to pick up on it because I'm going to make it very evident and clear. So let me go ahead and break down some of this for you. Okay, so Tyler Perry's Diary of a Mad Black Woman. It's a story about a black woman who is facing a struggle. Of course, you know, because it can't be a Tyler Perry movie without a black woman facing some kind of struggle. So her dark-skinned black husband of so many years decides to leave her for another lighter-skinned woman, and the current wife has a complete breakdown, blah, 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 blah. She finds a light-skinned black man, and she is initially very inimical and aggressive towards him, but she later on decides to give him a chance. She still displays bitterness towards a dark-skinned black man who is also still antagonistic towards her, and she goes on with the light-skinned black man, and we see that eventually she goes back to the dark-skinned black man. So you guys kind of already, seeing some of the repetitiveness already. So eventually, she goes back to the dark-skinned black man after he's suddenly become paralyzed, and she subjects her ex-husband now to torture because, again, Tyler wants to place emphasis on the fact that she's bitter and mad as hell, right? So she starts being nice towards the dark-skinned black man after, I don't know, I guess words of encouragement are used towards her until she brings divorce papers and begs the light-skinned black man to marry her at the end, right? Sounds like a circus. So, mind you, all of this is taking place while Perry is reinforcing the mammy stereotype while donning an older style of clothing and toting a gun around everywhere, acting like a complete buffoon. Now, before some of you try to come on here and create a false equivalency by bringing up someone like Harriet Tubman, let's be clear, you guys. Let's just be honest. That statement will not work. Harriet Tubman was a no-nonsense black woman who cared deeply for her people and was against any acts of buffoonish behavior that was reminiscent of an enslaved black person who would tell the slave masters of her plans if she tried to help them escape. That's the type of thing that she was against. She was in no way, shape, or form similar to this archetype stereotype that Tyler Perry tries to portray through Medea. Now, keep in mind if Perry's intentions while being made are to bring a certain level of morality to his stories and plays, he is more than capable of doing that without the need for such lamentable behavior, meaning that he can play himself without the flamboyant antics to convey a point. And I think that everyone would be more receptive of him if he actually took into consideration some of these things. So now that I've said this, again, I have to make clear Mr. Perry is not so high up on a pedestal that he's immaculate. We can be happy for a successful black man while still highlighting tedious and wearisome portrayals. This video is going to be super short though, because I don't want it to go on too long, but I do think that some black people are also aware of this as well too, which is why I'm not going to spend entirely too long on this video. And some are, I'm going to be honest, they're at a complete loss because they engage in cognitive dissonance and they are not open as they claim to be when it comes to discussing issues that plague our community. Even when we talk about the issues that a black person faces, it seems like that we can't really address the situation because it seems like that we're more concerned about a certain level of sensitivity. But certain situations I can understand, but this is definitely not one of them. This video also, I want to make clear, it's not any kind of like a subliminal diss towards anyone's views of his work, but everyone can use some form of constructive criticism, I believe. And we are saying merely that he can expound on other ideas. And I understand that he doesn't really work with too many other writers. If I understand, I did recall coming across an article on social media that states that he doesn't work with too many writers. So I will have to say this, you guys. I have to give it up to him for that. That's really exceptionally talented. But at the same time, this clearly show this clearly shows. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and shift gears for a moment because I've been reading the various comments in response to this man, and I just want to say this. We have got to stop, and when I say we, I'm talking about black people because, again, this is who this channel is geared towards. We have to stop with the shaming tactics. I was talking to a friend about this earlier, and when we were discussing this, we started talking about how it seems like that deflection is normally present whenever we try to make a point to someone. Typically, the person will try to engage in some type of like a shaming tactic to say things like, well, you aren't for the progression of black people, or we're not supportive, when that is not the case. What we are saying is that he's great, obviously, yes. And what we're doing is we're just grading him on his performance. Understand that not every movie we're going to just blindly support because of the fact that it's a strong black man who doesn't need help from the media. That's definitely not going to be the case because I think, like everyone else, we definitely have the capability of making sure that we can critique somebody, and I'm going to use those terms interchangeably for a reason. I'll tell you guys that at the end of the video. But he is able to be critiqued like everybody else, and I think that that's something that we oftentimes, again, think that because he's a strong, I mean, not strong, but he's an independent black man who doesn't need help from any other third-party agencies. But you guys really have to start being more receptive of our contempt towards him. No one is perfect. He certainly isn't, and making errors is okay. I believe that that's what he does. I think that sometimes he makes errors, and because no one has ever really said this, I think that people just kind of blindly go along with it and just overlook all of the blatant mistakes that I feel that he makes in his videos. Like with me, I'm a person where I can actually kind of tell when a certain stereotype is being portrayed, or typically I can tell whenever there is a message that's trying to be sold to somebody, and I have the capacity to be able to read between the lines and be able to see that this message is actually in essence like a backhanded compliment. So what I mean when I say this is making errors, it's okay, but it is what leads to successful growth. I know that you guys know some of this because I've seen some of you talk about it. I see people preaching things like this similarly, and we should be allowed to, again, grade him without ridicule from our people. So Now, just to kind of touch base on what I meant when I said constructive criticism versus critiquing. So I think that whenever we talk about constructive criticism, we are talking about it from the point of, yes, this is a certain action or display of behavior that definitely can use some form of an improvement. We're saying it, and it may sound like it comes off as abrasive, but it certainly does not, because ultimately what we try to do is we try to help a person to understand that it is okay to be subject to ridicule and scrutiny. It's ultimately what makes an individual stronger. And whenever I say the word critique, I won't say in the same instance, but I will say that critique is more of like a professional term, in my opinion. I've always kind of viewed those two terms similarly, but I understand that they are different. They're not exactly the same thing in terms of the criteria that's used to basically separate the two. So when we talk about critiquing his work, that will be in the style of a group of people who are able to give corrective remarks towards Tyler Perry without the need of being harsh. But it seems like that, particularly when it comes to people in our community, it seems like that we have to make sure that in order for a message to be relayed, we always have to make sure to become very, I don't want to say hostile, but I just want to say it seems like that the only way that we can really understand a point of view from someone within our community when we're trying to help them to become a better person is typically through a form of constructive criticism. And constructive criticism in the sense of, I think that we have this tendency to um, try to be helpful through the means of what appears to be degrading, but it's not really degradation. It's more so trying to help somebody. So um, one of the things that I just wanted to do is just kind of make that point clear, because I know that there will be people who will try to come here and say, well, you can't really use those terms interchangeably. But I just kind of wanted to give an explanation, my own personal opinion on why it is that I kind of played back and forth with those words for a moment. So again, this video, I don't want it to be too long. I do want to make sure to hear you guys' opinions. Make sure that you get in the comments section and weigh in down below. One of the things that I want to ask you guys is, do you think that there is a such thing as a person being so high up in terms of their accomplishments and achievements that basically everybody should support that person regardless of what type of portrayal that they're putting out there? Because I feel like that, again, it seems like that we will support anything so long as it's black, but we don't necessarily take a look at that person's morals, character. We don't look at what it is that they really represent whenever they try to give their message to us. So make sure, again, you guys just like, comment, share, and subscribe this video, and I will talk to you. Oh, and by the way, one of the things that I want to actually touch on next, it may be a while before I upload another video. I do want to kind of delve into the area of more politics as it pertains to black people. And then also what I want to do is I want to actually make a video on black capitalism, because a lot of people actually like the video that I did on black generational wealth. So I think I'm going to create like a sort of like a follow-up video to that and talk about how it is that black capitalism is a rampant and ascending problem within our community. It's becoming more prominent, where it seems like that people who are considered to be the elite of our community are not doing enough to act. And of course, I'm going to have to look at some research to be able to debunk any kind of talking points that someone tries to come up with. But again, yeah, I think I'm going to make a follow-up video to that one. So make sure again that you guys get in the comment section and like, share, subscribe, and comment on the video, and I will talk to you guys in my next one.